And what is going on YouTube and Facebook? Welcome everybody to Ignite Thursday, which every Thursday I like to come on here and share stories, tools and techniques to help you improve your life. And today we have a special Ignite Thursday. This one, again, I said I was going to change these up a little bit to essentially help people. We are in the studio as well too, so that helps with everything. And the first thing I do want to say is I want to thank each and every one of you. We did reach 700 subscribers on the YouTube channel. So thank you guys for trying to ignite the change that you want into your life by being a subscriber and to come along with me on my journey as well and help us build each other out. And ultimately understand that I am still doing virtual races as well too. So if that's something you're interested in, again, it's completely 110% customizable to doing any kind of activity to make 2021 the best year possible. And I wanted to do something to get closely involved with you guys to make change in your life, make 2021 the best year, since last year was kind of a little rough. So being said, coming into Ignite Thursday tonight, but the topic I have today is reflecting back on life events. And what I wanted to do with this particular topic today is essentially, it is coming up on my father's 3-year passing of his death of him, and ultimately understand how I've gotten from that point to this point and answer some serious questions, because I also came across this statement essentially saying that knowing how hard it was to change yourself, how hard it will be to even change somebody else. And it is extremely important to understand that, because of the fact that I know for myself, it was hard to make the changes that I wanted in my life, and to try to help somebody else make changes in their life, they have to be accepting, right? You have to want to make change in your life. And if you're not willing to do that, you're not going to ever have the change that you want in your life. And in saying that, once you come to that point, that realization that you want to make the change and you're actually dedicated to wanting to make that change, you need to go out and seek resources, right? Whether that is a mentor, or whether that's a book, or whether that's some other kind of source that's going to help you change your mind. And in reflecting on this and talking about trying to reverse engineer a lot of the different things that I've done, I've made the changes in my life to a point, and it really took life events to change the way I thought and change my perspective on things, to make change. And I have done that a lot of different times in my life. But the most dramatic change again came when it was the passing of my father, and it put things in perspective about life and how fragile our life is, and in realizing that our time, right, we get just an allotment of time. And you realize that once you actually become an adult, that the times you actually see your parents, right? You only got a handful of times when you'll actually see your parents. And I don't recall how many different times I've said told my father, I look forward to the next time we get to go out fishing or something. And months and years would pass, and I never actually got out and made those trips. And then didn't actually realize until, he got sick, that I started making a lot more frequent trips out there. I'd go out there, I think, twice a year at that point. But realizing that time is extremely important, something we don't get back. And a lot of the different things, I talk about when you talk about, you have everything inside of you, and realizing that you don't need to go, because we're essentially fed this idea that you need X, Y, and Z to make your life better. When in fact, you just need to understand the tools that you already have to help you make your life better. But it's understanding that and getting a grasp of that, because I know a lot of times, again, if I look back on my life, I've made changes, right? I went back to college when I was older. I made all these different changes that essentially I thought would improve my life, but I was just kind of scraping the surface, which I think a lot of us tend to do. A lot of us tend to look at news articles, look at social media, and just scrape the surface of things when we don't actually deep dive into things. And it wasn't, again, until my father's passing where I really understood the importance of being curious and following it up and actually diving deep into things that are of interest to me. And realizing that, again, we're living a life experience, right? The human experience, and realizing how short and fragile that is. And it takes in a life event. And so when you talk about trying to change your life, right, you get caught up in the moment. You lose track of time because you think you have an abundance of time until life event happens, right? Like it's perhaps you feel like you have health problems, or you have a death in the family, or you lose somebody, right? It really puts things in perspective to what makes you think that, oh man, I don't really have all this time that I thought I had, or I really need to make a change here, or else my life expectancy isn't going to be as long as I thought it would be. And so when I started thinking about this, and my father's passing, right, I started thinking, well, would I have really changed if he didn't pass? And I know him and I had conversations about, he was going through a divorce and stuff at the same time that I was going through a divorce. So it was like, if he wasn't sick, he could have moved down here with me and stayed with me. And then we could have like done things, because I didn't spend a lot of time with him in my teenage years and stuff. So I had that lack of experiences and time with my father that I would have been great, right? But to understand that, what I have changed, what have I made the dramatic of changes to start Discover Ignite, to go plant-based, to do all these other things that I started to do. And I don't think I would. I talked about how a lot of different times I was changing things, right? Like I did have the health scare. That's what caused me to look into the plant-based diet. And when I started becoming plant-based because of that, but it was that one little string, right? That started it. But ultimately, my father's passing is what ultimately pushed me to drive stronger, to start Discover Ignite, right? Because before then, I wasn't even thinking about it. I thought about, well, what other kind of investments can I do? And then I was looking at, okay, well, business is one of the biggest investments you can have, right? And stocks and real estate and all these other different things. And so I started thinking about these things and where I was in my life and what I wanted to accomplish. Because I think even in my 30s, I didn't really know where I wanted to go. And this is why I talk about finding a destination and stuff, right? Like I was just kind of blindly going along. And I think the passing, again, put things in perspective. Okay, you shouldn't just blindly be going through life and not having a direction. Because a lot of times we lose ourselves. We don't know where we're going. We feel like we're lost. And at that point, I couldn't have felt more lost in that given point. And it wasn't until his passing that I realized that, yes, you should be a hard worker. He taught me to be a hard worker. And that's where I get my work ethic from, is from my father, and realizing that you have to work hard to get to things that you want. And I was up to that point doing that. But again, I didn't have a destination. I get to a point, I'd have like different thoughts and ideas and goals in my life, but there was no final destination. It was just achieve a college degree, right? Do better, leverage up by going in the military to have some kind of leverage to make my life better. And so in saying that, making changes in your life and him passing, again, I don't think I would have made that transition. I think I would have been just going along, playing life as it was with no real direction, kind of enjoying the moment, but not really enjoying the moment, because in the moment I didn't really have like a final destination, right? Like I didn't have like things I should be doing that I wanted to improve my life, right? I was just okay with, spending the rest of my time, or the rest of my life, essentially working for somebody else. The rest of my life, only seeing that 60 years, right? That was me the rest of my life. I dread going to work. I dread coming back home and living my life and being miserable and wondering why things just weren't changing, because I wasn't doing enough. And that being said, right, everything is difficult. It doesn't matter what you do, you're going against your own programming. And so with that being said, if you want to make any kind of like change in your life, whether, oh, thanks, Gabby. I appreciate that. So being said, I mean, you're looking at the making the change in your life, right? Like, even though I did lose my father, you know, I'm not just trying to make this morbid or anything like that, but I'm just trying to reverse engineer what is going on. And, you know, I'm much better now. I can handle it much better now talking about my father than I could, you know, a year or two ago. But understanding that, you know, it's to say it's almost like things happen for a reason. Like I needed that perspective change to realize that, you know, I don't want to be working again 60 years of my life, right? That's not what I want. I want to make bigger change. But what's going to do that is have that like jolting perspective shift to understand that, okay, well, I got to make some big changes here. What's up, Angela? How you doing? And so in saying that and in making the dramatic shifts, I had to, I was trying to like pinpoint, well, how do you make that dramatic shift, right? And this is something that I talk about a lot is following curiosity. And before, you know, this whole thing, I would just be going through the actions. I didn't have a destination. I didn't know. I was curious about stuff, but I never followed up with it. And so it's funny because I've been reading this book and it's talking about curiosity. What really is curiosity? Trying to explain curiosity, and some things are very difficult to explain about curiosity. And actually, I got another interview coming up for a podcast, and that is going to be the topic of the podcast is about curiosity, because ultimately, you know, what really drives you to want to be curious, right? I think a lot of successful people are just curious, but they follow it up. And this also goes back to what I was talking about when I'm talking about, you know, just being surface level. I think we get caught up in the mundane tasks of every day, right? With all the stresses of life. And we look at everything for surface level. We never dive deep about stuff. And so a lot of times we can continue to sorry. You're a very curious person. That's good to know. And so in saying that, you know, it's important to, in defining curiosity and stuff, like, well, how do you do it? And in the book, it explained it like, you know, it's those kind of tough things that help push you and drive you. And I talk about like pockets of motivation, and curiosity kind of does that, right? It gives you these like pockets of motivation as you go along. And this is where like people see real success in their life because they're curious and they follow it up and not being surface level on stuff. And for myself, like, again, coming up to that point, I think I was very surface level. I would see things, and then I would think of things, right? I was never a judgmental person, right? I've always kind of come up with my own thoughts and ideas. And also why I talk about it's important to be your own thinker and not just allow society and news and stuff like that to give you a surface level reason as to why something as it is, and to actually dive deep into it through your own account, right? Through your own research, and realizing that this isn't what the surface level it seems like. And I can say that for the plant-based diet. I can say that for the finances and stuff, the stocks that I've talked about. And I can say that for everything, all the pillars that I talk about, and how you can change, right? In realizing that to make the change, you have to be curious and dive deeper and stop being surface level and think deeply about those thoughts and ideas of what really drives you. And we seek like, well, how can I be motivated about something, right? And it's about being curious about it and going out and following up and diving deep into it. And you realize that, again, you find the pockets of motivation that allow you to change your life. And that's essentially how I've linked from that point all the way up to where I am now, starting Discover Ignite, right? Doing my own investments and where that's taken me, right? And leveraging the tools that I have, because a lot of times we think when we get to that point, we'll have something that can help us leverage to get to the next point, where when in fact all the tools that you have, you just have to leverage them, and they can accelerate where you're trying to get to that destination. And again, if you don't have a destination, you are left essentially stranded right in the ocean and don't have any place to go. And so in saying that, I've really taken that and I've ran with it. And when thinking about being curious about stuff and how to define curiosity, it's something, which is also something I grabbed out of the book, which is actually really interesting, is the fact that, as there was this test done on younger kids, right? I think it was like around 5 years old. And we are most curious at 5 years old. This is also why we talk why kids always say why, right? So if you've ever had kids or been around kids, that is why they want to know how things work. And then they retested, kids, they follow the same kids, they retested them, I think, in their teen years, and then they did it as adults. And then the curiosity, I think, went down by like 60% by the time they were teens. And then when they were adults, it was even halved by that. And so we lose that sense of curiosity and stop asking why. Like, why does something work the way it is? And then this helps lead you into, being curious and actually going and following, well, why does this work that way it does, right? Like, why does the plant-based diet, why do they promote it so much? Why do people not like it so much? And you start diving deeper into it, and you're realizing the pros and the cons of it, and can actually talk about it and understand the goods and the bads of anything that you're curious about, and going deep diving into it. And so that being said, like, I talk about how everything kind of just lines up and things happen for a reason in your life. And looking back on it, and this whole curiosity thing and really expanding it and doing more came from that perspective shift. And it's not saying, this is why I say to go out and get perspective or be curious and change things up to get perspective on things, to try to help you make that shift to understand, well, I don't like the current situation I'm in. How can I change it? And then when you ask that question and you have the drive to want to do it, you got to understand why you want to do it. And a lot of times it goes back to just self-reflection, right? A lot of times I've always, had self-doubt in myself for many years, and still even to this day, I have self-doubt. And so what I do is I find the things that I'm doubtful about, and I'm curious about it. And then we deep dive into those different things that help me build confidence in myself by constantly going after those things that I'm curious about and asking why. Why does it work that way? And this can go back to a lot of different things, a lot of different events in your past that stop you from thinking that you can't achieve specific things in your life. And that in itself, right, it goes back to the mindset that in itself will stop you before you even get started, as opposed to just being curious, being the kid, acting like, you don't know anything, and then start asking why, right? No, I'm not saying going up to every individual that you've seen and ask why a million times, because you'll probably drive them nuts. But what I'm ultimately saying here is that just do it for yourself, right? And you find fulfillment in that, and being able to find motivation in that, and asking why, following up. And a lot of times, even for myself, like, I can get caught up in trying to learn too many things. And I've noticed over the past month, I haven't read as much, I haven't done as much research, because I've been looking at, what is my knowledge base now, and where do I have holes? What do I want to learn? It goes back to the whole curiosity thing. And sometimes I think you need that break, because I think, even myself, I overload myself. Okay, well, I got to get 60 books in a year, because if I really want to get anywhere, I have to read 60 books, right? And I think I started out the year, and I've read a lot of books already to this point. But I do this, I've noticed I've done this at least once or twice throughout the year, where I take breaks, and I just try to help myself absorb what I've learned and then apply it, be a practitioner of it, see if it works, see if it doesn't, and then being curious, right? Like, why? Okay, well, I learned about this thing. Why is it that way? And then following up on that, reading something briefly, researching something, and then just let it like sit and essentially try to generate thoughts and ideas off that one thing. And this is why I talk about like, meditation and think tanks and all that kind of thing, because it helps with that and coming up with ideas. But it really comes down to being curious and stop being the surface level and realize that you take a step back, because again, it's easily to stay busy in this life that we have that is so busy all the time. And we feel like if we are to be successful, you have to be busy. And so we're finding we're working more hours and all these other different things, when in fact, even myself, like I've been trying to rest more and allow myself, because you have to understand that too, that your mind, right? You're not going to be able to recall things if you're not getting enough sleep, right? Your brain essentially works that to be able to absorb the lessons that you're learning, you have to sleep, so it can essentially store those thoughts and ideas and everything away. And so it's been about like three or 4 weeks. I felt like I wasn't thinking correctly because I was burning myself out. I was doing a lot of workouts and doing a lot of research, and to avoid the burnout, right, I had to take a step back. And this is what allows you to gather your thoughts, kind of really ingest everything that you've essentially taken in, and kind of come up with your own thoughts and ideas. And then again, following up with those different things that you're curious about and exploring. You realize that you're a lot more fulfilled when you become curious and you find out new things that can improve your life and leveraging things in your life. And sometimes they're not always fun, right? Like when I first started like the stock market stuff, I had absolutely no desire to want to do it. It was not something I wanted to do. Again, plant-based diet, absolutely something that I wanted to do. But I followed up with it. I was said, well, can I start doing stocks by myself? And I started reading into it. Again, it wasn't really exciting, but that little bit of the initial thought, right? When I talk about surface level, the initial surface level of stocks is not exciting to me when I first started out. And then when I started doing it, I started getting excited about it. This is why I talk about pockets of motivation. And I found, if I can do my own investments, right? You take out the middleman, which essentially takes a percentage of your investment. If I could take out that would save me more money. And so I started diving all things and uncovering what was equity and understanding, the different businesses and industries and economics, which is something I never thought I would be interested in. And then it's blossomed into this whole thing that's essentially driven me to go out and being able to be flexible and go out and to do the things that I want, and to break off from, working a 9-to-5 job, to break off from doing all these other things, because I've taught myself these particular things. So now it's not saying I taught myself everything, right? I did have mentors along the way that have helped guide me, but ultimately I understand that I've had to mold myself to what fits me, right? Because no one glove fits all, no one shoe fits all, right? It's finding those tools that help you to mold into what is going to work for yourself. And curiosity drives that. Curiosity is a big aspect of that, and why a lot of people become successful, because they're curious about why does it work this way. Become that 5-year-old again. Why does it work this way? Oh, well, I don't understand it, and so look it up, right? Just look it up, ponder it for a little bit, let it absorb, and then you'll come up with another thought and idea, and then follow up with that. Realize that by doing this, I started really doing this right after my father passed. I started really looking into why things the way they were, right? Like it led from obviously why was my father taken from me? So I started, I know that sounds really morbid, but that's not what I'm trying to go here, but trying to understand that, I started asking that question. Then I started really asking why about a lot of different things, and realizing that, again, surface level things weren't what I thought they were. And that actually diving deeper into the things I was learning and teaching myself, finding motivation on going and doing things, because motivation, again, you're not just going to flip a switch and it just comes on and then you're motivated to go do that thing. It's more, you find the pockets of motivation by following the curiosity and really doing it. And again, allowing yourself to digest that information. Again, and actually the premise of Discover Ignite was essentially like a log of what I was learning along the way and getting my way out of where I was. And it was initially started as being a curious thing, right? You see everybody creating a YouTube channel and stuff like that. And so I figured I would log, right, and see my progress and hopefully help people along the way. And it's expanded into something more than that, right? It does take time. And that's a big thing, is being patient with yourself. Realizing change doesn't just happen overnight. It didn't happen overnight that you became the person who you are today. If you feel like you aren't happy where you are today, it took you a matter of time. It took you a matter of choices to get to where you are today, and to get to where you want to tomorrow. It takes choices over a period of time to be able to create the life that you want. And to be able to do that, you have to know your destination. A lot of times you may not know your destination, you may not have the drive, but you have to realize that curiosity is what helps solve this particular question. So being said, that is what I had today. I know it is quite long, but I wanted to share that story and hopefully help you guys guide yourselves to get to a point in your life where you want to make the change by being curious and realizing that if you can continue to ask why is this the way it is? And I know a lot of times we ask, you have to have a why to be driven. Financial investment coach. I haven't actually done that. I only manage my own personal finances. But it's something, I've thought about it. I've helped like my friends and stuff like that. Angela asked if I do financial investment coaching. But yeah, it's something I haven't really thought about. I think at this point, like I'm still like early in the process, even though it's been it's been over 3 years since I've been doing this stuff and handling my own like finances like independently, as opposed to just throwing it into a 401k, right? For me, it's one of those things that I think about, like I'm okay handling my own finances, but to be able to like start telling people, hey, well, if you did this or do that, I don't mind giving advice on that stuff. It's something I've talked about like doing on this channel a little bit more. If people are curious about that, right? If you're really curious about financial advice, I don't like, again, I'm not a financial advisor, so I haven't been through the proper training to be able to tell you where exactly to do this. But I can do it for entertainment purposes, that is for sure. Because a lot of different things that we are fed. This is why I talk about a lot of things, surface level and things. I think there are specific things that we aren't taught for a specific reason. And the reason I say that is because I have like seen things, right? Like being in the stock market, being plant-based, making changes in my life and being curious and asking why, following up and diving deep. A lot of people don't do that. And if you can just do that and follow it up, you can learn like so much. I know some stuff may come into like conspiracy theory stuff, but when you see specific things, like it really changes your mind and changes your perspective on things. And that leads to more things, more changes that you do in your life. You realize that, even the basics of like my health, financial investments, and more plant-based options. Yeah, most definitely. I could definitely come on here and talk more about that stuff. Again, I do believe that it's what changes, right? Again, if you can really dive deep on these things and realize you have to be open, right? You have to be, and when I talk about like being open-minded, you have to essentially come to the table thinking absolutely nothing, right? Because anytime you come to the table, you always have the thought or idea of what you know about it, and so you already have that like preconceived notion of what that is, right? And that's why I talk about removing tags, because if you have tags on something, it stops you from wanting to ask why, right? Because you think you already know the answer, as opposed to just coming to the table and like it's brand new, it's fresh. Like, what are you going to teach me? What more can I learn about the plant-based diet? I know it's becoming more of a thing as opposed to before. When I started doing it, right, it was still really kind of like jarring for people to hear that. And I know for myself, I called myself a vegan for a while because I didn't understand the difference between a vegan and someone that was plant-based. And there is a difference in being vegetarian, right? There's a major difference between the different, and realizing that there was different types of veganism and different types of being plant-based and stuff like that. And then going into the financial realm and realizing that, a lot of the surface level stuff I thought is not just that, right? And understanding the statistics behind everything, seeing how banks actually work, right? And the whole thoughts and ideas that I had aren't quite the same that I thought that they were. So being said, I know I've made this one extra long. I kind of ranted quite a bit. Hopefully I didn't scare anybody off. I don't know if I lost you, Angela, but nonetheless, I appreciate each and every one of you. Again, thank you guys for the 700 subscribers. If nobody's got any questions, I'm assuming Angela's still on there. She's always has some great questions. But nonetheless, if you do not, I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you guys are igniting the change that you want. Thank you, Angela. I appreciate it. And I hope you have a great evening, Angela. I hope you guys are doing fantastic. Hope you guys have a great weekend. Until next time, guys, I will see you guys later.